Hey, welcome to my tutorial. Welcome to my IT tutorial. Welcome to my tutorial. Hey guys, welcome to my IT tutorial on what? Virtual machines. We're going to talk about virtual machines. We're going to talk about virtual machines. We're going to talk about virtual machines. Yes guys, this is my very first IT tutorial, and we will be discussing how to set up and launch a virtual machine. Very simple. So let's get started here. First, you want to make sure that you have Microsoft Azure. You will need an Azure account, a subscription. It should start out free. But even if you don't, the pay-as-you-go model works pretty well. And yeah, that's about it. And to jump in, you will also need this here, the Windows app. You need a Windows app. Keep in mind, I'm working on a Mac. I'm on a Mac, guys. If you're on a PC or Windows, you have to use another app. I believe it's like a hypervisor or something like that. But that's what you have to use on PC. Windows, you have to Google that to find that out. But I'm on a Mac. I have to go to the Mac store and get the Windows app. Okay, so what I'd like to do with these tutorials is have a nice, very easy to follow flow chart here. This is my virtual machine flow chart, kind of a flow chart, at least in terms of the PowerPoint. So we're going to start out with what do we need? What do we need to create, right? And the first thing we need to create is a city, right? A city, right? And the city is like what? A container. It's like our container. And what's our container? It's a resource group. A resource group is like a container that houses everything, every type of resource that we could possibly use, like a virtual machine within Azure. So we have to create our container first. I like pictures and visualization to memorize what you're doing and the steps in which you're doing it. I think this will help others, and you can create your own with this inspiration as well. So let's start with creating our container that's going to contain everything. Our city is going to have everything in it, right? Now let's name it something very, very simple. Virtual, no spaces, virtual machine test. That's the group. It's a virtual machine test. We're testing out the virtual machine. Very simple, very self-explanatory. I like to keep things very, very basic. I just started, brand new. Default settings usually work for me. Haven't had any issues. Boom, it's created. Most things won't get created that quickly, guys. You'll see it later in the video. I'll probably have to skip ahead while things are loading or being created. But right now, we just created our resource group. Boom. Great, right? First step in creating our virtual machine. Now, we created our city, right? Now, for a city, we're going to need streets. We're going to need streets. And for the sake of this tutorial, or streets, I liken to our virtual network. Why? Because our machines need to run on something. They need to go somewhere to share data, information, and resources, right? That's what a virtual network is. Secure communication to share information, data, and resources. But they need to be on something, right? So, and if you look here, like it's just like a street going to a phone, a street going to, little street going to this desktop here, right? So I like to liken it to that. That's simple for me. Someone else might use something else, but I like to view the virtual network as like the street within my city, right? In terms of Azure and creating a virtual machine. So we need to create our street for the virtual machine, because the virtual machine won't have anything to go on, to communicate, to move on. So let's name it something simple. Make sure it's in the subscription you have here. Make sure it's in the correct resource group, the correct subscription. And let's name it something simple that will stand out, because they do automatically create one. Let's name it Crazy Virtual Network Crazy VM. Simple, stands out. You'll see it when you're creating your virtual machines very clearly. Next, default. I use defaults. Created. Very, very simple. If you know more in depth, I will be studying for CompTIA more later on, but right now I keep everything very, very simple. Was it created just now? Yes. See, we have virtual network, right? Crazy network. Okay, so now we have our, city that's gonna have everything. Virtual machine test. Our container. We have the streets where the virtual machines are gonna run on. Crazy virtual network. Now we're gonna need actual virtual machines to be created, and I liken them to cars, right? Hey, see right here, this is a web browser and another web browser within it, the virtual machine. Now, so a lot of people, in terms of computer devices in general, they like to use houses, like in terms of, especially when you talk about IP addresses. They say, oh, the IP address is the address of the house and it's a house, but it's too stable, and I think it's easier to conceptualize and think of devices in terms of cars, because they're always moving. You can move a desktop. PCs are always moving. You want something more stationary, you can think of mobile home. But I think it's easier to use vehicles, because it's easier to think of vehicles, right? You can say, like, this truck right here is the desktop, and this is a PC, a laptop. And you could say a Toyota is Windows, and then right, it's hard to think of different types of houses in that regard. And even when you're troubleshooting, right, if it's easier to think like, oh, someone says my keyboard is not connecting, not working. You can think, oh, the tires are not working. They're not letting you interact with it, right? So the tires might be dirty, right? The keyboard might be dirty, right? It's easier to conceptualize. What are the tires? What's the keyboard in a house? Right, so the house thing in terms of computers, I don't think is very good. Like, a lot of tutorials, a lot of people use it. I don't think it's well. I think it's easier to think of cars as computer devices on a network, right? Because all the different parts and how they work, different colors, different brands could be different operating systems, different colors, different sizes. It's very easy to conceptualize and visualize in your head as you view devices on a network as different types of cars. That's just my opinion. You don't have to use that, but I feel, especially just starting out, it's very, very easy for me to picture that, right? So the cars, we're going to create different types of cars for our virtual network, for our streets. Okay, so we're gonna create a Windows machine first. Windows machine. So you go into here, click the correct resource group. See, it created some automatic group thing here. And we want to click on virtual machine test, right? They're always creating something else automatically, right? You want to make sure you create your distinctive thing and named correctly. This is just going to be a Windows machine, so Windows virtual machine. Region, it depends where you are, where you live. I'm in US, East US. It might, it depends on your system, what works for you. The zone has to do with the type of vCPUs, virtual CPUs you'll be using. I suggest 2, as most do. I tried 1, it's a little sluggish. You're going to want to pick 2. Now you see this right here showing zone 3 is on supported, the only one supported. So let's go and make sure we click zone 3, right? Zone 3, and that red should be gone. See, no warning signs or anything. Now image is going to be basically the image projected, the image of the browser, what we want to see. So we remember, we're creating a Windows machine. We don't want server, right? That has to do with Active Directory, domain server, domain controllers. We don't want that. We want a regular Windows machine. So you could click anyone. Is Windows 11, Windows 10, but we could click Windows Pro. right here. Okay, that's the image we'll be using. And you want to click a basic, very basic password here, or jot it down, write it in Notepad. I use the same type of basic password for everything that I create. So it's very simple for me. Make sure you're jotting down this information so you remember it and able to log into your virtual machine. Make sure you click this box here, right? Gotta make sure you click this. Otherwise, you're going to get like a red, warning error preventing you from moving forward. These things pretty default. You want to go to networking and make sure the virtual network is the network we created. Crazy virtual network. All right, and they created some automatic settings down here. Again, I leave everything pretty default, just started. It works for me until I get more in depth into everything. Now this review is going to validate it. If you haven't checked that box, it's not going to go through. The validation is not going to go through if you haven't clicked on this box here. Right. Now it's just going to do it again. Okay, now it's going to create our virtual machine. Now this is going to take a little longer than the resource group being created and the virtual network being created. It's going to take a little longer than that. I'll probably skip ahead in the video to when it is created. And then go back to here. See, different types of cars, right? Isn't this easier than putting different types of houses? We could put a Baroque house or a stone. Like it's easier to think of different types of cars and different colors of cars in terms of different devices. Like a limousine could be a tablet. Very easy to conceptualize a tablet. Okay, so we have our Windows virtual machine here created. And yeah, it's here. Correct zone, virtual machine. It is a Windows machine. You might make a mistake and make a Linux. We don't want to make a Linux yet. It is the Windows. 2 vCPUs. Public IP address, which is what we will be using to log into our virtual machine via the app. And isn't it the correct network? Crazy virtual network. Okay, so let's create our second virtual machine. This one will be Linux machine. Pick the correct resource group again, virtual machine test. They emit something basic, guys, something basic, Linux virtual machine. All these settings can remain the same depending on where you are, what you're doing. Okay, so it's right back down here, zone 3. Okay, we have Windows Pro image. That's not the virtual machine we want. We want Linux, and that'll be Ubuntu. That's Linux. Not the server. We don't want servers. We want the operating system, the regular operating system. Okay, we don't want SSH secure shell public key. That's something else. We don't want that. We want a basic password to log in. Linux there. Use the same logins for everything that I test out, so I don't have to jot it down. I use the same complicated password. I suggest that as well. You get a really complicated password you use for everything. Doesn't matter if you use it for everything because it's super complicated. Just remember that. Okay, everything's looking good here. There's no box to check. That's only for the Windows. Next. Networking. Okay, it's in the same network, right? Right. Okay. Needing to be on the same street, right? Otherwise, they can't drive past each other, can't drive next to each other, right? You want them to interact on the street. Okay, validation passed, and it will be created here. Remember, once again, we are creating our cars on our street, right? Again, if it takes too long, it will skip ahead here. Okay, guys, we are back. And we have our second virtual machine created here. Linux, let's just make sure, check in here. Okay, zone, it is a Linux using Ubuntu operating system. It is a Linux. Public IP address, we will not be using that though. Linux, we will not actually be logging into the Linux machine. We will be using the private IP address though to ping it, which we will be getting into in later videos. It's on the same virtual network. So there we have it, guys. We're almost at the finish line. We have our 2 virtual machines. Isn't that cool? Well, what do we need to do next? We need to go and actually launch them. So before we do that with our Windows app or whatever app you're using on the PC or Windows, go to our Windows machine. Remember, we don't log into the Linux machine. Let's copy this here. Copy the public IP address. You can just click it and it's copied. Now we go to add PC. Paste the IP address. Name it what it is. It's a Windows virtual machine. And boom, it's there. Now let's connect to it. What do we connect with it? Yes, that password that we created earlier. Make sure it's jotted down. Go ahead and log in. Continue. And it should launch easy. No problem. No problem. Do you see that, guys? Do you see how smooth that was? Do you see how smooth that was? Launching our virtual machine. We out here launching our virtual machines. Hey. And it's just gonna load up there. Not gonna take too long. Might skip ahead. Okay, and let's click this stuff off. You don't need like any of this advertising and all. You don't need any of this. I keep it default. From what I learned, you don't need any of it. Just keep it moving. Just keep it moving, guys. Setup is almost done here. Another thing's going to pop up. You want it to be discoverable? Probably. It's on a virtual machine. Let's allow it to be discoverable. Nearly done there. There's going to be like one more screen that pops up like here. There's the browser. Continue. And don't want to sign in. Start without your data. Uncheck this. We don't need that. Confirm. We don't want them to do anything with us. And it should be set up here. And you can customize it. But boom, here's the browser. Microsoft Edge. And that's it, guys. We have launched our virtual machine. We have set up and launched our first virtual machine. Here we go. And it's Windows. I'm on a Mac and it's the Windows. I'm on a Mac and this is a Windows virtual machine. A Windows operating system within the Mac. That's it, guys. Okay, moving forward, we're going to be doing some other things with it. Checking traffic and pinging the other machine. But in the meantime, congratulations. We have created our first virtual machine. Remember, you can go back, pause, rewind, and make sure you got certain steps clear. I believe it's pretty clear, pretty simple, especially later things we're going to be doing. Okay, well, congratulations on creating your very first virtual machine. My name is Nashon. I will see you in future videos. Have an excellent day.